had always heard stories about the old abandoned school in our little town. They said it was haunted, but I never believed in ghosts. One night, out of sheer curiosity and a bit of boredom, I decided to check it out. I brought a couple of friends who were equally intrigued by the tales. We arrived just as the sun was setting. The school loomed large and dark, its windows broken, and the front door hanging off its hinges. We squeezed through the gap and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of mold. Our footsteps echoed down the long, empty hallways. We wandered through the classrooms, seeing textbooks scattered on the floor and chalkboards covered in faded writing. It was creepy, but nothing out of the ordinary. That was until we reached the basement. The basement door was heavy and creaked loudly as we pushed it open. The staircase leading down was steep and narrow, and the darkness below was terrifying. I turned on the torch on my phone and began to move forward. As we descended, the temperature dropped noticeably. I shivered, pulling my jacket tighter. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a large, open space that looked like it used to be a gymnasium. The walls were covered in graffiti, and the floor was littered with broken glass and old gym equipment. Suddenly, we heard a noise, a soft sound which sounded like somebody talking. My friends and I froze, our hearts pounding in our chest. The noise grew louder, more insistent, but we couldn't understand what it was saying. One of my friends suggested we leave, but curiosity got the better of me. I moved towards the source of the sound, which seemed to be coming from the storage room at the far end of the basement. The door was slightly open, and as I pushed it, my phone died. Plunged into darkness, my friend fumbled for their phone, managing to turn their torch on. When they had finally got it on, I was met with a horrifying sight. The room was filled with old, decaying mannequins, their faces cracked and eyes missing. But that wasn't the worst part. In the corner of the room stood a figure, not a mannequin, but a person. Or at least it looked like a person. It was dressed in old-fashioned clothes, its skin pale and eyes sunken. It stared at me with a horrifying intensity. I backed away slowly, but he moved forward, reaching out a hand. I turned and ran, my friend close behind. We didn't stop until we were out of the building and back in the car. We managed to get away unharmed, but the image of that figure haunts me to this day. I still don't believe in ghosts, but I know there's something in that old school that doesn't belong to our world. There was an old factory on the outskirts of our town, abandoned for decades. It was once a thriving place, but now it was just a decaying structure, overrun by nature. My friends and I, looking for a thrill, decided to explore it one evening. We arrived at the factory just as the sky was turning dark. The massive building was imposing. We found our way in through a side entrance that had been pried open. As soon as we stepped inside, the air felt different, heavy and oppressive. We walked through the main hall. The place was filled with old machinery, some of it covered in ivy, and the floors were littered with debris. Every creak and groan of the old building made us jump, but we pressed on. As we explored deeper, we came across a staircase leading to the basement. It looked even darker and more foreboding than the rest of the factory, but our curiosity pushed us forward. The basement was cold, and the air was thick with a damp, earthy smell. We wandered through the maze-like corridors, finding old offices and storage rooms, all empty and abandoned. Then we heard it, a low whispering. At first, we thought it was just the wind, but the sound was too distinct and too close. The whispering seemed to be coming from behind a heavy metal door at the end of the corridor. We gathered our courage and pushed it open. Inside was a large, open room. The whispering stopped abruptly as we entered. In the center of the room was a circle of old chairs, and in the middle of the circle, an old, tattered book lay open on the floor. As we approached, the air grew colder, and we could see our breath in front of us. One of my friends picked up the book, and as soon as he did, a loud bang echoed through the room. The door had slammed shut behind us. We tried to open it, but it was stuck. Panic set in as the whispering started again, louder this time. Shadows danced on the walls, moving in unnatural ways. It felt like we were being watched from every corner of the room. In our desperation, we turned to the book. It was filled with strange symbols and drawings. My friend dropped it, and the moment it hit the floor, the whispering stopped. The door creaked open slowly, and we didn't wait to find out what happened. We just ran. The factory was demolished a few years later, but I still get chills whenever I think about it. I don't know what we encountered that night, but it was something beyond our understanding, something that still haunts my dreams. It was a brisk autumn evening when my friends, Dan and Jessica, convinced me to explore the old Miller mansion on the outskirts of town. The place had been abandoned for over 50 years, its owners disappearing without a trace in 1968. Local legends spoke of strange occurrences, but we were skeptical, attributing them to overactive imaginations. We arrived at the mansion just as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows over the decrepit structure. The house loomed before us, its windows dark and empty, like the eyes of a long-dead corpse. Vines and overgrowth choked the exterior, and the front door hung on rusted hinges. I hesitated at the doorway, but Dan pushed past me, his flashlight cutting through the dimness. "Come on, it's just an old house," he said with a nervous laugh. Jessica followed him in, and after a moment's pause, I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of decay. Our footsteps echoed through the empty rooms, which were filled with broken furniture and scattered debris. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the wallpaper peeled away in long strips, revealing the skeletal framework of the house. We made our way through the ground floor, our flashlights revealing nothing beyond the expected of a long-abandoned house. Then we found the staircase, its wooden steps groaning under our weight. As we ascended, the atmosphere grew heavier, more oppressive, as if the house itself resented our intrusion. The second floor was even worse. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and the air felt almost suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, though I dismissed it as paranoia. We split up to cover more ground, each taking a different room. I chose a small bedroom at the end of the hall. The bed was still made, its worn-to-white sheets now yellowed with age. A dresser stood against one wall, its mirror cracked but still intact. I shone my flashlight around, noting the remnants of a life left behind. A child's toy, a hairbrush, a book lying open on the floor. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper. I froze, straining to hear more. The whisper came again, clearer this time, and unmistakably coming from behind me. I spun around, my flashlight beam dancing wildly across the room. The mirror. Something's wrong with the mirror. In the cracked glass, I saw my own reflection, but a shadowy figure was standing behind me. Heart pounding, I whipped around, but the room was empty. I turned back to the mirror, and the figure was gone. I bolted from the room, nearly colliding with Jessica in the hallway. She looked as terrified as I felt. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before I could respond, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. It was Dan. We raced towards the sound, finding him in the room at the far end of the hall, pale and shaking, pointing at the wall. There, scrawled in what looked like blood, were the words, "Get out." That was enough for me. We fled the house, our flashlight bubbling wildly as we ran. Outside, we didn't stop until we reached the car, gasping for breath. Dan, usually so brave, was visibly shaken. "I saw them," he said. "The Millers. They were standing right there, staring at me." We never spoke of that night again, each of us too afraid to acknowledge what we had experienced. The Millers' mansion still stands, a silent sentinel on the edge of town, its dark windows hiding secrets best left forgotten. And me, I've never set foot in another abandoned building ever since. Some places, I've learned, are better left alone. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and check out my other horror stories on the screen now. And until next time, sleep tight.